Our next and last speaker, Ed Yu. Come on up, my friend. Ed Yu works with a company called Strong Salt that is doing a very interesting implementation of a privacy blockchain that is that will protect your data. So it's not just about your financial transactions, but about your data. And they have an app that is currently available in both Android and iPhone app stores called Strong Vault. Is that right?
Correct.
Strong Vault, right? And he'll probably tell you a little bit more about his protocol. And without further ado, here is Ed.
So thank you, everyone. Before I start, I want to tell you that I brought some swags. The problem with the swag is that you have to be not easily offended. So if you think you are easily offended, I suggest you do not get close to the swag at all. If you feel like you can take a joke or you are not that seriously self-righteous prick, then I highly suggest that afterwards that you go there. I think I have enough for everybody. If I don't, find me and I'll definitely make sure I ship one to you. Okay, so that is that part. The other one is that I highly suggest that during a meeting, doing this talk, that when I get to a point where I say, take out your phone, I highly suggest that you participate by downloading the app because it's a lot easier to explain. Because sometimes, as you know, that talk is cheap. It's actually very hard to explain certain things in a short period of time, but it's very easy to show and to demonstrate whether it works or not. And I'm a product person. I really highly value usability. So I want something that's actually usable by everyone, not just people who are highly technical. So that's something that we build into the app to make it easier. But without further ado, I will explain to you exactly what the hell the app really does. So as George was saying, we deal with privacy, but a particular kind of privacy, data privacy. As you know, privacy encompasses many different things, right? We talk about transactions. We talk a lot about privacy coins. We also talk a little bit about private anonymity. But now I want to talk more about data, because data is everywhere. We all know about data. The idea, it's important, even though it's only the first slide, is that we want to make sure your data is private from everyone and everything. Before, I only want to talk about everyone, but as we all know, now it's everything we also have to deal with as well. So what are we producing is we are a privacy as a service platform. What does that mean? Platform is overused everywhere. But what I want to say easily, if you're a programmer, it's an API that you can use and embed in every single app. The one thing I always, I'm a car person. Anyone else is a car person here? Okay. So if you are, well, let's say you are a car person. I actually think the best thing about car, interestingly, is nothing to do with performance. I think the best thing there about car is airbags. Because airbags does not require you to do anything. You don't have to put on the seatbelt. Well, you should, but you don't have to. But the airbag is just there, right? You never see it. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't actually impact the way you use your car. But it's there when you need it the most. So I think what we want to do for this platform, privacy platform, is that we want it to be built into a point where it's just there. It's like the S in HTTPS. It's there. It just works, and then you don't have to think about it. But it protects your privacy as that. So that's the privacy platform we are trying to build. So why we talk about privacy? Obviously, everything usually, eventually comes down to money. It's very expensive. Privacy is a very expensive problem, not just for enterprises. It's also an expensive problem for each individual. It impacts your life to a point where it's very, very hard for you to live this world without actually having some privacy. At the same time, it's actually very hard to live it when you want to have complete privacy. Privacy is just expensive thing to achieve. So what we do is that we want to make it so it's easy. What we do is we have a privacy API that's actually very, very easy to use. Extremely easy to use. It does only three things. It does three things very well. Stores your data, searches your data while it's actually stored and encrypted, and be able to share your data while it's encrypted. the whole thing about we say privacy by default, what we really care about is the fact that everything is encrypted at all times, no matter what you do. In other words, we do not ever decrypt the data unless it's somewhere you feel safe. And that is, right now, we define it as the terminal or your phone or something on the end user side, something you can have physical control of. Only at that point we decrypt your data when you wanted to. Otherwise, as soon as you take out your phone, everything's encrypted by default and only you have the key. We do not ever see your key, even if it's encrypted. So what this platform does is that the idea is that we are going to have a lot of apps that is going to be eventually going to be built using this. And so you can think of a privacy-focused Facebook, a privacy-focused Twitter. I mean, basically any app you currently use, the idea is that eventually they will all have privacy as a core component of what they are. And that part will set them apart from competitors, and that part is the part that we as individual people care about. So this, as I said, we have three things: Search API, Store API, Share API. We will expand to more APIs. I put in AI, ML, big data stuff, which I'll show you if you have app later that what we mean by that. The idea is that everything has to be encrypted at all times by default. There's no option to turn off the encryption at all. But we wanted to make it so easy to use while it's encrypted that you can do anything you normally do with unencrypted data that you can do with encrypted data. And anyway, this is business stuff. That's not interesting. So blockchain. So we are here because of Bitcoin, and we are here because of blockchain. So one thing I want to talk about is the fact that we are blockchain agnostic. We technically work with any blockchain. We do not require a particular implementation of blockchain for this to work. In fact, one of the things benefits is that if you have, I assume everybody has seen a blockchain, at least know what it is. But one of the benefits of this is that if you have people around you who sometimes ask you, what the hell is a blockchain? One thing now you can do when you have an app is we actually have a part where you actually literally can see blockchain at work at your fingertip. So in other words, you have the app, then you can say, somebody asks you, what is blockchain? You can say, okay, well, here's what it looks like, and here's what it does for this particular app. So I'll explain to you what that means. So we, blockchain agnostic, we did talk about ransomware, which is a big problem. I don't know how many of you has ever been subject to ransomware, but there are a lot of companies who are subject to it. And actually, interestingly, this is a byproduct. We did not originally thought about it, but it turns out that our solution is perfect against ransomware. I mean, protection against ransomware. Okay. So this is the app. You don't have to, but I would like you to try. If you have a phone, I don't care if it's iOS or Android, search for the word Strong Vault, one word, Strong Vault, and you can download it. And I want to explain to you what makes it unique, especially when we talked about anonymity earlier. So one of the things we do on the app, after you download it, the first thing when it brings up, the first thing you will see is that there's no registration. As you know, any cloud service you currently use, right? Doesn't matter if it's Dropbox, Facebook, whatever it is. Any kind of cloud products they use right now, they always require to register, right? By minimum, they will require you to have a username, password, and most likely an email that you have to activate. So they know that's your email. In other words, they know your identity. They have a profile of you. We do not require any of these things. The only thing we ask you to is press the button in the bottom that says generate a mnemonic, which you can keep pressing it and it will generate different mnemonic. You guys are in the Bitcoin group, so you all know what mnemonic does. You can generate yourself. If you know how BP39 mnemonic works. Mnemonic works. But if you don't, you have a button that does it. Everything is done on client side. Nothing touches the server. In fact, the app should still work if you turn on the airplane mode. If you don't believe me, so it works locally initially, and after you have the mnemonic, then you can log in. And it will only ask you for mnemonic if you ever lose your phone, you get to a new phone, or if you ever want to log out and then log back in again, or you delete the app, whatever it is. mnemonic is just your final key eventually, that if you happen to lose your phone. Other than that, it's always it's never needed again. Once you log in, then you will see two files. They look like they're not. They will look like they're not encrypted. Well, they are actually encrypted. The only thing that's not encrypted is actually your file. Name. There's actually a lock that you can click on. It will actually lock it. What it does is that when I say lock, is actually it encrypts your file name in addition to your file content. So now it just looks like any file, right? It's a file like browser, file sharing thing. It doesn't look any different. But if you click on anything, you will see a preview. It actually will show you the encrypted content, and then you can use a either your Face ID or Finger ID to basically unlock it and then be able to access your files. So what makes this unique? What makes this unique is the fact that even though everything's encrypted, you can still search not just the file name, but the file content within the files. And then search, I can tell you, it's actually very fast. You can see whether you can try it. See, it should be fast enough. There's actually different tabs in the bottom. One of the tabs allows you to be able to share your contact with someone else, so you can share files, right? You have something that's encrypted, but it's very private to you, but you might want to share with somebody else if you want to. And there's actually a messaging tab. In fact, we actually incorporate messaging so that you can actually also message your contacts. Because very often if you talk about, hey, I share a file with you, you obviously need to find another way to communicate, say, hey, I share a file with you. So we actually built that in, so you can have both messaging and file sharing in the web app. If you go to the last tab, which just says account, you click on it, what you will see is that you actually see a ledger and you'll see transactions. And this is what I tell you when I say everything we record on a blockchain, and in fact now you have a blockchain at your fingertip that allows you to be able to explain and see what happens. So if you add a file, you just upload a new photo, you create a new text file, upload a PDF file, all these transactions, you delete a file, somebody shared a file to you, you share a file to someone else, all these things are recorded so you have immutable proof that what happens to your file. Because everything is encrypted, we don't see anything, so we can't give you anything else other than the fact that you did something. So it's basically event trace of everything that happened to your account. So in case you want to know what happens to your data, if somebody did something to your data that's not out of your control, you can at least say, hey, look, I know something happened to my data. So that's the idea of what we use the blockchain for. So it's basically a blockchain built specifically for private data sharing, nothing else other than data sharing. So that's an app, but the same app is, if you feel the app is actually easy to use, and that's what we strive for a lot of times, then you can see the power and what the app API is used for, right? Because if the API is only capable of building some app that's clunky and hard to use or slow, then the API has no value. The idea of the app is to demonstrate. There's two things. The one thing is to demonstrate how powerful our API is, how easy it is, and second is to demonstrate the fact that it's actually a gift. Because I personally are part of this community. Even if somebody, well, I know some of you, I don't know all of you, but I'm part of this community, and I care a lot. I'm an introvert. I'm actually what they call an introvert. So I think a lot of us are, and we innately care about privacy. So it's just something I felt like I want to do, because the community has helped me a lot in many different things. I want to give back to the community. So one of the things I want to do is to build this app so that anybody in the community, whether you're technical, whether you're not technical, whether like my mom, who's I want to build an app that my mom can use. My mom is 72 years old, and she's using my app. So that's actually one way for me to, eat your own dog food, or you can say, have somebody that I test the usability of this. And so the app, we do have patents. We actually, the searchable encryption, we have patents on searchable encryption. We have patents on, we also have patents on shareable encryption. We also have patents on decentralized shareable searchable encryption. So the patents are not useful for anything. If you guys do software, you guys know patents are just useless. You know that. In fact, I can't even understand what the hell the patent says. The lawyers made it so that I have no idea because it's all legal terms. I got confused myself, even though I was the one original who drafted the patent. But it's just a way for us to basically make sure that we can protect so we are going to open up everything so that way we can actually protect the community for using our API in the sense that other people cannot claim they have this patent, right? So at least now we can say, hey, we have the patent, we open up to the community, so community should be protected. I mean, we still live in the US world, so we kind of have to deal with real world sometimes. Those are who we deal with. Some of those are just some of our partners that we deal with right now. And we also, since we're in the blockchain space, you guys probably seen some companies that you know of. We actually have a lot more. We just haven't updated slides yet. If you care about tokenomics, the white paper currently actually don't talk a lot about it. We actually used to have it in part of the white paper. We took it down for some reasons. We are in some talks for certain things, so we can't say too much about it. But the idea is that it's the first instance of what we call API mining. The fact that you mine by calling APIs. The idea is that we want to encourage better developers by creating something that has real use, have real users. So if they have real users, more people can download the app, then those apps will end up doing stuff in the backend, and the more they do, the more APIs they can call, the more likely they will mine certain things. So it's an encouragement for better apps, because we don't want crappy apps. We also don't want apps that nobody uses. The idea is to encourage that by giving mining as part of the API calls. So actually, I think there might be some that I don't know of. I think it's the first instance of mining by API calls. We actually have different ways to deal with other parts of it as well. There are obvious problems. If you're interested, you can read the white paper, especially after we put back the token side of things. There are business reasons why we don't do it right now. That's who we are. Dan is actually works very close. So Dan, we share the same professor with Benedict, and Dan actually works very closely with us. He actually reviews our code because he always says his reputation is on the line. He doesn't want to have a bad security product that bears his name. Matt, also from Zeek, you guys should know him from Zcash. He also works with us as well very closely. And then Tony Scott, he is actually, interestingly, under the Obama administration, is the federal CIO under the Obama administration. So we are on Telegram, Strong Salt. If you are in Telegram, please join us on Strong Salt. If you are anything else, Twitter, we are actually Get Strong Salt. Someone else got Get Strong Salt. I don't want to buy it from him, so I just say Get Strong Salt. The LinkedIn with Strong Salt, Facebook is Strong Salt, but the app is actually Strong Vault. The reason why is we want to make a differentiation between API and also the app, because the app does not tell the full story of the API. I think that's it. Does anybody have questions? Please go ahead.
I was going to ask how do you make money, but I guess tokens.
No, actually APIs. We actually deal with, so we have a lot of enterprise customers. The way we charge them is that if you think about, okay, one way we explain to people is that, you know how Twilio is for SMS, Stripe is for payments, we are for privacy. That is how we generally talk to people. So enterprises, they do pay us in order to use our API to make sure that data is secure and private. So that is how we do it. Go ahead, sorry.
What's your origin story?
My origin story.
Did you start out wanting to go into privacy, or did you just kind of meander, discover?
No, we actually started with search for encryption, in fact. The origin story was that originally, when I was doing a startup, when I started the startup, originally my idea was to do something called universal search. I wanted to be able to search across everything I have to tell me exactly how many copies I have, how many versions I have, and where the hell they are, which USB drive they're on, right? You guys remember USB drives, right? You have multiple USB drives, thumb drives, right? It's like I have a file that has different versions spread around everywhere. So I want to have a universal search engine that allows me to search on everything. And I got stumbled upon one problem. My stumbling block was the fact that I have a file that's encrypted, and I can't search within encrypted files. So I said, that sucks. Let me solve that problem. That's how we started. So the company originally started really on social encryption. That was our major thing. And then obviously that's because of privacy reasons. The reason why I have those files encrypted is because I care about my data privacy. And from that, we kind of grew into this. There's a blockchain reason, the reason why we got into blockchain was actually, interestingly, we were doing a project for DoD. They called me up to ask me for certain things. They want us to solve a problem for them. I can't tell you exactly. I can tell you that has to do with Pentagon being destroyed. I can't tell you more than that. So they want us to solve a problem like what happens if Pentagon is destroyed, right? How the hell you do certain things? And we look at it, it's like, well, obviously you guys need our technology, but you also need something else. Are you guys open with blockchain? Interestingly, they actually say yes. So we were working on that for a year for them. And then after we worked on it, we realized the base version, basically a base version. It's not just for military use. It actually has a much bigger use case for everybody. So we say, let's open this up so that we can actually do more for more people. And that's how we actually started incorporating all these things into blockchain. Sorry, go ahead.
My question to you is, you mentioned that the platform is blockchain agnostic.
Yes.
But you also said the StrongVault app stores either the data or references to the data inside the blockchain. What blockchain are you talking about?
So we currently actually has, so interesting, this is actually from Dan. We originally, so I have this thing where I personally like proof of work, interestingly. I know it's the oldest, it's not the most fancy way of doing consensus, but I just like proof of work. I just think it's simple and simple. I just like simple, right? And but when I was talking to Dan Bonnet, we actually were having breakfast, and then I said, hey, I think we need a blockchain because there's certain things I want to do. I want to be immutable, blah, blah, blah. And so we talk about all the different consensus. At that point, he thinks that Federated Byzantine Authority was actually a better way to do it. FBA was a better way to do it. So at that time, we actually were looking at Stellar. So we actually incorporate basically a fork of Stellar into our stuff. But we have changes to a plan where it doesn't really look like Stellar anymore. And then we realized that we can just factor those two parts out, and then we can work with any blockchain. That's why we have a library that allows you to basically store that information on any blockchain if you want to. So that's why we have so many partners, because they all use different blockchains, but our stuff actually still works on the back end, still works regardless whichever blockchain you use.
Is your token also on your proprietary blockchain?
No, the token is actually can be on. Technically we can actually use any token if we have to, but it uses a blockchain, a proprietary blockchain, or any blockchain that we end up choosing, in the sense that it needs for accounting purposes, right? Because the API token token is actually similar to how how they restrict API usage based on what you have. Same thing, we have different things, staking parts of it, so the blockchain will have to deal with that. But so far we found it to be comparable with most blockchains that we actually play with. Sorry a little bit, let me answer somebody because they, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so if I'm using your app,
yes.
Where is the data actually stored? Is that on your servers?
Good question.
And I saw that you have like a decentralized storage
Yeah.
pending.
So
is there something kind of like made safe, like a distributed?
It is actually depends. So as you know, we actually have enterprise customers as well. So that means that it really depends. It depends on what they want. For example, let's say a company comes up and says, we have a contract with AWS because our company is only allowed to use AWS. In that case, we allow them to plug in their AWS into our backend. So their data will only be stored there, but it will be spread around in AWS for them in a way that is actually completely unintelligible to anybody looking outside, including Amazon, because it's not just encryption. We actually do a lot of that. We do chunking. We first do chunking, which basically makes all the data into similar size pieces. Then we do consistent hashing. Then we do. Then we do radio coding, then we do consistent hashing. So basically, all the pieces are just literally spread around everything. So, but if they don't do that, let's say they don't care, then what we do is that we basically spread around everything we have. So that includes decentralized storage, that includes Amazon, that includes Google, that actually includes Microsoft. The idea is to that in case one of them goes down, you still have access to the data. And we do that for you if you just use the app. Sorry, give me a second. So please.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether is your source code already open source or?
No, some parts of it, but not everything. We are, because we are coordinating with, I can't tell too much, we're coordinating with some other projects, and we are basically trying to figure out what's the best time for open sourcing it.
But like, I mean, for sort of the cryptography should be open source.
The cryptography is actually, we actually just use the AS256. So in fact, actually Dan actually read through our code. So Dan actually knows how code works. But we are open sourcing it, exactly. So it's actually something that, a lot of it is a decision, I'll tell you why we didn't do it before. The reason why is that we have, as you know, we have patents. Lawyer says, basically it's a lawyer's thing. It's like, you can't open source until you actually get a patent granted to us. So now we have 3 granted to us, we're waiting just for 1 more, and then after that we can. So that's the thing. It's basically lawyer things. Go ahead, sorry.
In the beginning, you mentioned you have protections against ransomware.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Sure, yeah. So ransomware, there's actually 2 kinds of protection. There's basically a client side and there's a server side, right? So our protection is, the major thing of the protection side is on the server side. So in the sense that so the way ransomware attack targets you is that they have to know who you are. They also have to know what you have, and third, they have to know what's inside what you have. So in our case, because our stuff, so we have different things, right? So that's first of all. First of all, we have complete anonymity of the data, owner of the data. So literally, we have no idea who you are. And the only thing that ties you, which is not even you, the only thing the data is recognized to is a public key that is generated. And that public key, so first of all, it's actually very hard for them to say they're targeting on one particular person because they won't know who that person is. Second of all, because data is completely encrypted, it's not thinking but go ahead,
Yeah,
sorry.
so ransomware is kind of blind. They don't target specific.
Right, they don't. So what happens is also because the verification of the data is actually written, and then we also do constant hashing, all those things. So it's actually very hard for them to actually basically be able to target the pieces, because our backend is completely decentralized, and also we don't, like even us, it's going to have a hard time knowing where things are. So it's actually very hard to know that this piece of data is garbage and this piece of data is actually data. So it's actually very, very hard to target that thing. Does that make sense, what I said? Or
Yeah,
I can go into
it's not-
detail more.
It's not personal ransomware, it's how you store the data.
Right,
Type of
right,
ransomware.
exactly, exactly. And also, second thing is that because we actually record any changes to the data, and then and because the way our storage works, is that even if something happens to the data, you can always retrieve your data back because of all the things that,
I understand.
yeah. Sorry,
How are the mnemonics generated, and isn't it pretty vulnerable to an offline attack?
I'm sorry, I can't hear. Cause the mnemonic generator.
I downloaded your app, I tried it out.
Yeah.
And it seems to be, like all you need is the mnemonic and the PIN to get access to someone's data. So isn't that pretty vulnerable to an offline attack?
No, actually not, because it's actually, so the mnemonics generate some parts of it that does not generate actually the keys for encryption itself. So the keys itself is actually generated randomly on your phone, but the keys, the mnemonics is only identifying the public key that allows you to be able to tie the data to you. So there are different things on the phone that actually allows you to do things. But you are right, mnemonic is actually one big part of this, your security, and this is one of the things that it's basically a trade-off for person use, right? Don't forget, like as I said, I need my 72-year-old mom to be able to use this. So mnemonic, in fact, I don't even like mnemonic. So far, recently, we're actually looking at technology that allows you to use facial features to actually generate certain things. So that way, you don't have to always rely on mnemonic. And but it's something that it's a work in progress. Go ahead.
So I downloaded your app.
Yes.
I created an account.
Yeah.
I deleted the app.
Yeah.
Then I reinstalled the app and I put my mnemonic in.
Yeah.
So I thought when you deleted the app, it like deletes all the apps stay on the phone.
Right.
So how did that work?
So there's 2. If you look at a privacy setting, there's actually 3 different settings. You have low privacy, medium privacy, high privacy, right? So high privacy, if you set that one up, what happens is that we basically have no trace of anything. So that literally says everything is local on your phone. So that is a setting where you can think of almost like a virtual airplane mode. So nothing gets recorded anywhere. Not even your data does not get backed up to this cloud. So in other words, it stays on your phone. It's just encrypted locally on your phone. So that is the setting where if you really care about that not having any backup anywhere, then in that case, if you do if you have the mnemonic, then you won't even you won't get the data anyway. Like you get a new phone, you get a mnemonic, and nothing will be there just because nothing is there. But if you do a medium setting, what we do is that we back up your encrypted data to the cloud, but only the key is still on your phone. So in other words, that part is like, so yes, the cloud or the decentralized storage sees the data, but they see the encrypted data chopped up and also being spread around and also being erasure coded, all those things. So we can't recognize it. Of course, you could say, you might be able to piece it together. The problem is that we can't piece it because for us, assuming I believe the AES-256 implemented correctly is not easily crackable, then you can trust that. Because there's actually a very, we actually took, Ben and I, we actually spent a lot of time thinking about, what is the most, we specifically does not want to invent our own crypto system because it's not a good idea to invent your own thing. So we specifically wanted to make sure that we use anything off the shelf that is NIST approved in order for us not having to deal with that. And there's also export control if we have to deal with that. So we specifically don't use any proprietary crypto systems. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So earlier you mentioned that in order to drive adoption
Yes.
and usage, developers got a lot of API calls.
Yes.
A lot of API
Yeah.
effectively mine the token.
Yes.
Right? And then you mentioned that effectively you guys fork Stellar. But how can you mine tokens with the Stellar consensus mechanisms once you're federated in the system with no mining at all?
Exactly. So so that's why the mining part of this thing is actually not the normal what you consider as mining. The mining part of it is not what you consider as the it's not proof of stake or proof of work. It's the mining part of it is actually a way for you to get how should I describe it? It's more similar to how you are startup, you sign up on AWS. AWS give you free credit. It's similar more to this. You get a rebate on the API calls that requires token to do so.
So is it a fork off of Stellar?
That part is not fork of the Stellar. That's why.
You guys basically if it was somewhat like that, you guys would pre-mine and just distribute?
No, we do not pre-mine. It's actually a part that we actually on the white paper we actually said basically we reserve that part for mining only, and that part is is never touched by us. In fact, our app will not be part of this. Will not participate in the mining itself.
So what's the consensus?
The consensus mechanism actually depends on eventually which blockchain we actually use for that particular part. As I said, I personally still want to go for proof of work, but there's actually certain problem with that right now. So we've been internally discussing what is the best way to do because there's actually a lot of talks recently on DPoS. So it's something that we are looking at. But to be honest, I personally still like POW, but it's a personal thing.
Is the token live or not live?
The token is live on a testnet, which if you use an app, the token is there. It's actually hidden from your app directly, but the token is actually there on the testnet. So every time I use it, when I store something, token is actually being used. But the use is only on the testnet. So it's hidden away from the user at this point.
Oh, so it's not a cryptographic token of the state, it's just like a unit of account in your database, right?
It's basically a unit of accounting at this point, yes.
I don't see any other questions. Oh, one.
Okay, cool. Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
You mentioned your searchable encryption. I'm wondering if the white paper touches on the mechanics of how that's implemented.
Yes, it touches on that. It gives you, so we talk about, there's actually several things. Basically, if you know about searchable encryption, there's actually many different ways to do it. There's homomorphic encryption. There's multi-party computation. There's ORAM, oblivious RAM. There's also SSE, symmetric searchable encryption. There are different ways to do it. We touch upon all different ways to do it, and then we touch upon how our improvements go for it, right? Because the biggest problem with everything else out there is a lot of it, other than performance, which is actually a big problem, the other problem with it is the fact that they're very limiting. So what's interesting about searchable encryption is that if you compare that with what you don't have, searchable encryption is basically 0 to 1 problem. The problem is that right now, and then people always say 0 to 1 is harder than say 1 to 100, which is true. The problem is searching on unencrypted is so powerful now. It's really not 1 to 100 anymore. It's 1 to 10,000. So even if you get with 0 to 1, it's not going to be enough to compete with unencrypted data searching. So that's why we actually spend a lot of time on that part to make it so that we're close enough that for most use cases that you will feel that it has the searchability that you're looking for. And that's what we actually touch upon in White.
So from my understanding, it was not meant as criticism.
Right.
In the strong mode, is that functionally any different than turning on Android encryption or anything like that? You lose, basically, if you lose your phone, everything's, well, when you have your phone, everything's encrypted, that's when it's locked. And when you lose your phone, everything's lost.
Everything is lost. Yes, that is basically that is the trade-off. If you want to turn on only the strong, not strong, we call it actually high privacy.
So basically, the high encryption is very similar to what the device would already do.
Not exactly, because we do actually encryption. The device, sometimes they do. Depends on how the device is implemented. They have encryption at rest for sure, but they don't necessarily have encryption in use. In our case, most of our encryption is in use, unless you specifically, if you have a file where if you use the app, if you go to a part where you say preview, the button says preview, you basically before that you see the encrypted parts of the file, right? You encrypt it, decrypts it. At that point, it's decrypted, but until you get to that point, it's encrypted at all times. So that is the difference.
And then in terms of the ransomware, again, I get the server side, that makes sense. Definitely that thing.
Right.
But if it's local and you do something stupid like download malware, in theory, once it has the administrator level control and your phone's unlocked, then it could still encrypt anything local to your drive.
Yes, you can still
in high mode.
In high mode, yes, you can. If you are in high mode, then we can't help you on that, because it's basically it's like the rationale is that the phone is a physical thing that you have in your control. If you lose that part, it's very hard for us to kind of do anything for you, because we literally have nothing about you. We don't even know who you are. So in fact, we actually it's funny, like our marketing people. I have marketing people telling me, how the hell we target our customers who download the app? As I can't, because I don't have the email and I don't want to collect the email. So I can't target any of you, even if you download the app, because we don't know who you are. We have no way of contacting you. We literally have no way of contacting you.
We're going to take these last two questions and then close for the night.
Is there a mode or a capability where I can run a server myself so that I can sort of have everything private on my phone, but I can get the data myself?
So we actually have some of our blockchain partners or customers, they actually run their own servers. They literally run their own servers. There's an API that allows them, as long as they adapt to the API, they can. It will be gibberish to them too. It's like, don't get me wrong, it will still be gibberish. It will still be like some blocks will be encrypted, some blocks will be gibberish, but it's their own server. Like, we do not store the data anywhere.
And if I have it on the server and I lose my phone, could I then install the app on a new phone or something and get the data out?
Yes, you do, assuming you still have the key. Right? If you don't have the key, the problem with encryption is that if you don't have a key, there's a lot of things you cannot do. So we don't help you on that part. But the mnemonic is a way to make that easier. If you choose not to use mnemonic and you generate everything yourself, that's fine too. We currently don't have that capability in the API, but we can't expose that. We have that internally, we just don't expose that right now.
With regards to the mnemonic and the making a new identity cheaply without
Right.
asking all kinds of questions. It reminds me of Microsoft's decentralized ID effort. Have you looked at integrating with them at all?
No, but we are actually, interesting, we actually have ties with Microsoft in the sense of from business side. So it can be something that eventually can be explored at that point. Right now, we care very much about just being able to independently provide something that people can use. So the Strong Vault itself really is what you would call community edition. It's meant for people just to use. It's a gift for the people, to be honest. That's our gift.
Jeff, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I work on SDK.
Yeah.
So if I'm a developer, I can start developing this right now.
Not right now exactly.
When will that?
So there's a business reasons. So we actually are looking to Amazon reInvent to launch it. Whether we, it's just kind of want to tie into some kind of business thing. So that's something we're tying to. So there are actually developers who individually contact us, and then we allow them to try the API. Yes.
Oh.
So that's something that if you send an email to info@strongsalt.com, and then if it's then we can see if there's some arrangements.
So you know the app I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Let's give a round of applause.